Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans, and we have our Week 5 preview coming up. We got 4 more games this week, all that good stuff. This will be a bye week, actually, for the Edmonton Elks. Make sure you guys stick around. Make sure you guys leave a like on the video, share it around, and give that a subscribe, and hit that little notification bell. Really helps out the channel a ton, ensures that you guys don't miss any more great content. So, if we're looking here, I think we should get it. Should we just roll right into this, Rick? I think there's no time to waste. Might as well. We're going to start with the Toronto Argonauts versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Now, this will be a bit interesting as Saskatchewan missing 2 key players in this game with Trevor Harris, and I believe it was Sean Bain Jr. who was out as well, right?
That is correct, sir. So
that's 2 really key pieces for Saskatchewan that have helped them at the start of the season. As you guys are most likely aware, Saskatchewan 3-0 to start the season. Toronto 2-1 start. They had lost last week by 10 points against the Alouettes, where they were finally able to actually make this Alouettes team look a little vulnerable in some cases. One thing actually somebody mentioned that I forgot to bring up last game was obviously there was that onside punt. So we know Montreal is going to do that a little again. I had forgotten to mention that. My apologies. Literally just tons we got to get through. But if we're looking at this game here, I think those 2 injuries really hurt Saskatchewan. As Shea Patterson, he's decent if Trevor Harris gets shaken up and he's got to play a few plays. I think that's fine. A whole game start to finish against Toronto, who overall has done pretty decent despite having some talent that they've kind of underutilized in regards to the receiving core. Their D-line has looked scary. They have done a good job overall. And overall, because even like AJ Ouellette has had games where he just hasn't been able to get quite as much. And it's funny, it's not just AJ Ouellette. It's seemingly just a running back problem in the CFL where some running backs this year just haven't been able to get quite as much success as they have in prior years, at least so far in the season. Just not many of them have been able to get their mojo and really have a really strong performance rushing. So, like, how do you feel about this game, Rick?
So here's my thought on the whole thing is, okay, now that Harris is out,
yep,
it's what do we have moving forward? Because let's just put this down for discussion's sake.
Okay.
Let's get the elephant out of the room. Let's don't even look at Harris. Let's just say, okay, Harris can't play anymore. He's retired, whatnot. You have Patterson, you have Cohen. This is what you're going to depend your next 6 games on, right in front of you. It's either you sink or you swim.
Then they'd sign Barrier, which I mean, I don't have any confidence that they'd be putting this guy in there. I mean, he wasn't able to carry the Bombers through the preseason. A few glimpses here and there, but
wasn't that the one that threw the interception?
Which one? I'm pretty sure he threw more than one. But yeah, no, he had thrown at least one interception. I think he threw a few, but it was one of those things where he just, to me, is just too green. He just needs more time.
But I mean, but even that. Okay, so when did they sign him? Today?
Barrier?
Yeah.
Within the last week. It wasn't today. It was earlier in today. It was maybe a few days ago. Within the past week.
Okay. So like you was it? I'm pretty sure it was you that mentioned each quarterback has so many plays that they have to learn. So you figure Patterson goes down. Barrier has half a preseason worth of experience. Cohen has the USFL or XFL experience, whatever you want to call it. No CFL experience.
Well, and even then, with Barrier, it doesn't even matter because he didn't even have enough time to learn the darn playbook in time for the game.
No.
And so, like, if we're looking, because Patterson's going to be the starter. I think it's very clear that Shea Patterson is going to be leading this Riders team. So, if we're looking at the weaknesses that Saskatchewan has in terms of those injuries, how does this affect? Okay, you're out one of your top receivers, and you're out the guy who throws to him. So now you have Shea Patterson, who, again, I think could do decent, but this is where I think the problem of that Toronto D-line comes in. where Toronto's D-line has been able to put some decent pressure on some opponents, and force teams to give up some stuff. Like even if I'm looking at last game, they're able to get a sack as well as an interception against Montreal, which Montreal notoriously has had a very, very good offensive line to start this year. But they did give up one last game. So Toronto has been able to do decent on the defensive side of things, putting pressure on the quarterback. Trevor Harris, obviously veteran quarterback in this league. There would be times where he would deal with that better than others. Shea Patterson, being that backup, I don't know how well he deals with that pressure. And so this is where I think that Saskatchewan's offense is going to be hindered in ways that they haven't yet been this year. Is just in the ways that I think Toronto can put pressure, really are a bit amplified because of the circumstances regarding injuries, and most specifically, who is injured. And I don't think it matters as much with Sean Bain Jr. just because Stearns had played well. Kean Schaefer-Baker is still like a top tier receiver in this league. MLS has shown that he is a very competent receiver. So I'm not really worried on the receiver side of things for Saskatchewan. Where I am worried is on the quarterback side of things with Patterson. And it's one of those things. I'm not saying he can't deal with it. I'm just saying is that he's gonna have a hard time. And I don't know how well he'll deal with that. Maybe he proves me wrong, by all means. But I don't know. I just don't know if it's enough to carry them through the whole game. That's really what I'm getting stuck up on here. I'm not going to lie.
Here's my two comments before I get into the Toronto side.
Yep.
Okay. Shea Patterson, 2 weeks ago, when they played us in Regina, went 4 for 10 for 41 yards on 10 attempts. That's not going to win you a game.
No.
Next, here's the other thing. What version of AJ Ouellette do you get? Do you get the one that barely put up any rushing yards in the first game against Hamilton, or do you get the one that put up 98 yards plus?
Well, and this is where I think this is where it's more important than ever that the running game for Saskatchewan has to be going, because they can't rely on the throwing game as much. Not saying that Shea Patterson's not going to connect on some throws. He absolutely will. But it's all the more important that that AJ Ouellette steps up now for Saskatchewan to really drive that offense. Because if Saskatchewan's going to win this game, they're not winning this game on getting touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. They're just not. They're winning this game by consistently being able to push enough to get in range for Brett Lothar to kick those field goals, to consistently get points on the board. And that's where I think Saskatchewan needs to be if they're going to win this game, is just at least getting drives close enough where Brett Lothar can do what he does best, and he can get those points and slowly but surely just wear down Toronto. Cameron Dukes has had a decent start to the season, some games better than others. And so I don't know. I really don't know. Because if I'm looking here, if I'm even looking at their game, Toronto, when they played against Edmonton, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 18 for 21. So good completion percentage for Cameron Dukes in that game. He had done his completion percentages have been decent. Kadeem Carey, he's had some solid games. I mean, even in this game in particular, he had 104 yards. Keep in mind, that's on 19 rushes. So it is a lot of rushes, but it was at least over 5.5 per rush. So definitely did well in that regard. Their running game had done pretty decent there. And so I think having a solid running game for Toronto is going to be important. And just being able to keep that throwing game kind of roughly where it's been. If they do that, I think Toronto can come out with the victory. So is there any more 2 cents you want to come out with, or do you think we want to get to our predictions? Because I think I'm ready.
So here's the thing that I have with this that doesn't really have to do with this game, but it's before the predictions, is everyone says Saskatchewan's the team to beat in the West. Everyone says behind Montreal, Toronto's the team to beat in the East. This will prove who's the dominant team between the two. Is Saskatchewan really the top team in the West? Or can Toronto give Montreal a run for their money when they play them again? Because if
Whoa, hold on a second.
Toronto,
Is Saskatchewan? Sorry, you said is Saskatchewan the top team in the West, but then you started talking about Toronto.
Yeah. So if Saskatchewan beats Toronto, like I'm not just saying by like 5 or 6 points, like I'm talking like by like 15, 20 points. If Saskatchewan dominates Toronto, is Saskatchewan really the top team in the West? Or if Toronto beats Saskatchewan by like 15, 20 points, is Saskatchewan really not as good, and BC is the top team in the West? And if Toronto beats Saskatchewan like that, then when Toronto plays Montreal again,
a healthy Saskatchewan team gives BC a run for its money for that top spot. In its current state with the injuries, I think BC is the best team in the West. But again, Saskatchewan has played really, really well these first few games, worthy of that spot. But this game is going to be the test on how well they do without Trevor Harris. And so my prediction is that the Toronto Argonauts will defeat the Saskatchewan Roughriders this week.
But the thing that I'm saying is,
okay,
I don't care about injuries. It's all about next man up mentality and your depth on your team. If you don't have good depth, your team's not going nowhere, of which you can't be as successful in the standings, in the playoffs, and that as you can. Just picture this before I give my prediction.
Okay.
Think of this as Toronto, Saskatchewan, Grey Cup. Trevor Harris is not playing Grey Cup. Do you honestly think Saskatchewan's going to win a Grey Cup with Shea Patterson?
No. But I mean, injuries are a big factor. So we gotta look at it the way it is, and that's where I'm going with Toronto. So yourself?
I just without a quality quarterback, I do not see Saskatchewan beating Toronto.
So Toronto's your take.
Toronto's my take.
Okay, no, just because we got 3 more games, we gotta get to, Rick. We got a lot going on.
Oh.
That's all good though, because the next game of the week is the Ottawa Red Blacks in Winnipeg against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, interesting thing, but the Bombers this week.
Winnipeg 2.0.
Yes, Lucky Whitehead back for Winnipeg. Someone was saying that they hadn't heard something official from the Bombers. I don't know if the Bombers have actually officially announced it. I saw it on Bomber Paradise. They usually I'm not gonna lie. I would highly doubt he would throw that up on his account if he I've never seen him wrong about something like this. So everything that I've seen has indicated that Lucky Whitehead is back in Winnipeg for this game. So we're going to go based off that assumption because that's the evidence I've seen. Now, interesting thing, today Zach Collaros did not practice. Now, Coach O'Shea had said that his pull in the last game after getting shaken up and not going back into the game was precautionary. Now, the thing is that I don't know how much I buy that. Not saying I don't trust O'Shea, but that him pulling him precautionary in the game doesn't mean he's not injured. It means we're pulling him because he might be, and we don't know, and we don't want to make it worse. He said that during the game. There's no way he could get analysis on exactly what the injury is in the middle of the game. There's no way. He's got to focus on the game. And so when it comes to that, the Zach Collaros situation, it really seems like it's up in the air. And so I think we need to go into this game with the assumption that Chris Streveler actually starts the game, just because of the uncertainty with Zach Collaros. However, one thing that's key to mention is that Chris Streveler actually played pretty decent. The Bombers got their first passing touchdown. He did throw a pick near the end of the game. Now, keep in mind, this was DeMario Houston getting that, who is just the master of the interception. So this is not like this was a normal pick that he had thrown. This is a extremely talented defensive player who's shown that he was able to do it. Not saying Ottawa doesn't have any of those. I'm just saying that this is, context matters. But Drew Brown has had a bit of a mixed bag in the sense of that Ottawa, they had points where they didn't play the best, at points where they played really, really well in their first game against Winnipeg. And they were ultimately able to come out with the victory. Now, the Bombers have gotten a little bit more beaten up in terms of their roster since then. However, I would also argue that the Bombers' play has improved in some aspects. In the sense of, I think, despite the injuries, I think they've actually played a little bit of better football in the sense of they've gotten more of the passing game going. They've been able, Brady Oliveira's had a few runs here and there that have been a bit better. Although I will say Brady Oliveira's still in that slump. He's got to get out of it. I think the O-line has improved quite a lot since then. Now, they have kind of fallen into the trap of taking some penalties, but overall, I think their protection of Zach has been better, which it sounds funny when I say that because Zach got injured last game. But if you look at the amount of time Zach was getting hit before that, he was getting hit before that even more. It just so happened that the one last game he got hit hard enough that was able to happen. The big weakness here for Winnipeg has been that D-line. They really just have not been able to apply the pressure here. And Ottawa's offensive line has struggled. However, they were able to do decent against Winnipeg because of the fact that Winnipeg's D-line has been struggling. So they were able to take advantage of that, and they looked pretty decent in that first game against them. So with Ottawa, they were able to come up with a big win last week against Hamilton. Lewis Ward has been good. Obviously, Sergio Castillo has been good. Again, second longest kick in CFL history last week, with longest Blue Bombers kick in their franchise history. We have a short out on all that beautiful stuff. Absolutely hilarious clip with my brother screaming like a crazy madman in the background. There's a short on that on the channel. Check it out. Like 45 seconds of just pure gold. But if we're even looking at Drew Brown from last week, 1 touchdown pass, no interceptions, 24 for 39. So completion percentage not the greatest in the world, but definitely nothing too bad. 265 for yards. Okay, 6.8 yards on the average, so not too terrible. Armstead, really, really strong game when he played against the Bombers the first time, but ever since then, he's just been okay. So, we're going to have to see how much of that was him himself being really, really good, and how much of that was just the Bombers not being good, and Armstead playing a pretty decent game on top of that and being able to capitalize on that. So we'll have to see. Because, again, I really was not impressed with the Bombers' defense, and especially the D-line to start the season. What's your 2 cents, Rick? I've been talking like a madman.
Okay, so a couple of things. To answer your question off the top.
Yep.
The Lucky Whitehead is not official because if you go to the transactions page of the CFL website.
Oh, yeah?
It would be listed if it was official. So it's not official yet, but it's most likely happening. Also, correct me if I pronounce this name wrong.
Yep.
Marquez Bridges. Is that his name? Marquez? He's a DB. Marquez.
Oh, yeah, he's one of our guys that we have in now.
Okay,
sorry, we've had so many guys cycle in from injuries and then just also some new faces, so I'm still trying to learn everyone as well.
So he's now gone to the practice roster, and they brought back Chris Ike back. Then if you look at the injury thing, you guys still have one more day of practice, but right now, Evan Holmes hasn't practiced this week. Yep. James Murphy hasn't practiced this week. Obviously, Claras and I'm not even going to pronounce the guy's first name. Eli is his last name. He's an offensive lineman. He hasn't practiced for you guys this week.
Yeah, no, he's one of our second string guys.
But it's just like one thing that you guys have to honestly work on.
Yep.
Just like us Ticats, are your darn penalties.
Yeah, no, and this is where I think overall we started the season pretty. It's funny, for all the things that were bad about the start of the Bomber season, they actually started pretty well in terms of not taking penalties. Last game was an exception. My goodness. It was at least 2 offside penalties, 3 procedure penalties from 3 different offensive linemen. Again, my brother was talking about how 2 more needed to get a procedure penalty, and you would have had a full house, full whole line full of procedure penalties. So, but, that's a great example of the Bombers just completely shooting themselves in the foot. Now, I will say, one of those procedure penalties then results in Castillo hitting one of the greatest field goals I've ever seen. And so, at least in the CFL, that is. And so, kudos to Castillo for that, but that was totally him bailing out our team in that regard. But overall, like, I think I've pretty much covered everything I want. Again, Chris Smith has been very, very good at returner for the Bombers. Unfortunately, their protection in front of him hasn't been great, but Chris Smith has done the absolute most possible with his returns. If you look at the lack of blocks he's getting, he's really getting every last inch that he possibly can, even though he's not getting as much help as probably he really should be getting. So.
No. People are going to call me crazy.
Yep.
As I'm going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
So, last time these two teams played, Oliveira was not in the lineup. Oliveira's in the lineup this time.
Yep.
Last time, it was just Dembski and Wolodarski and Whitfall. That's when Whitfall had his
That was when
game.
That was when Whitfall had a pretty good game. Despite the drop that on the ball he had earlier on, he then made up for that with a pretty good game.
I honestly think Strev is better than Drew Brown. I don't care what people are going to say out there. His experience and everything is better.
There's a reason he went to the NFL.
The coaching between the two teams, Winnipeg has more experience. Ready for my prediction? I'm going with Winnipeg for their first win without Collaros.
You know what's funny? I'm actually going for Winnipeg too. And I took Calgary last week. And I could totally understand someone being like, why the hell are you taking Winnipeg? In the sense of like, you know what? Winnipeg has gotten more and more injured. But this is going to sound strange. But even if Collaros is healthy, I kind of want to see a little more Strevler. Like, Strevler got the touchdown pass. Collaros, like, I'm very much a guy that when it comes to coaching, I think one of the best ways you can coach is when a guy's not performing, you show that he doesn't play. And no matter what his status is, if Mark Scheifele, for 2 whole periods on the Jets, is going out there and he's not doing anything and he's not playing the way he can, then bench his ass for a bit. Hell, you could sit him on the bench for a whole game in the regular season, not in the playoffs. But in the regular season, you could sit him on the bench for the whole game. And you know what? Will that piss some players off? Yes, but that's when you can get the bloody best out of them. And so I think Strevler has played really, really well in his role. And even when he went in, I think he played pretty solid for the end of that game. I think he's earned the starting spot for the time being, at least. Assuming Collaros is healthy. If he's not, then Strevler is obviously the take. But I think Strevler's earned some more playing time throwing the ball. I do.
I will say this.
Uh-huh.
If you guys don't beat Ottawa,
oh boy,
you guys aren't going to beat Edmonton.
we're in serious trouble. Winnipeg seriously needs a win, and now it's at home. I'm actually not going to be at this game. I'm actually going to be in Toronto. As I'm there for the Money in the Bank weekend for WWE. We're going to have some content coming out on the Money in the Bank weekend in Toronto out in the Nolan Hockey Podcast. You guys will be able to check that wonderful stuff out. I'll still cover this game on the Nolan Hockey Podcast. I'm probably going to watch some of the highlights as well as some of the games on CFL Plus On Demand later that night probably, and the video will probably go out the next morning, that sort of thing.
Could you imagine me and Zach doing a review for that game?
Oh my goodness.
Your brother, let's just say your brother would be off the deep end.
That would
you know what I think.
But
these people can't do protection with their lives depending on it and their fucking penalties.
Oh yes. All them curse words. He'd give you the full house of curse words. That's what you'd get. All in all, I'm taking the Bombers. And man, this video is going to be a long one, Rick. We're running late, but that's fine.
That's okay.
We got time. We got nothing else to do.
I'm on holidays. People like to say that they like their long videos.
I was about to say the CFL Discord has been very happy with our long videos. So actually, maybe in the comment section down below, do you guys like kind of the 30 minutes or less format, or do you guys kind of like sometimes us going to 40 minutes? I mean, sometimes we can't go to 40 minutes because I just don't know what to talk about because there's only so much I can keep in my brain at once. I know I miss things. My apologies for that. I promise I try to remember as much as I can. What'd you say?
I said that's why you depend on me.
Yeah, that's why I have this guy with me, because I know he'll remember all the BS that I forget. Well, most of it. If we both forget something, then that's just our damn fault. It is what it is. But the next game of the week is going to be the Saturday game. It's going to be at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be out in Montreal. Calgary versus Montreal in Montreal. Calgary coming off a big win in overtime over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And Montreal coming off with a 30-10 victory on the road against Toronto. So, man, you know what?
Should we just go right into predictions?
It's one of those things where this is a tough situation in the sense of that Calgary has actually been decent to start the season. I mean, obviously they have in the sense of that they've been able to, they have a winning record. They're 2-1, which I can't say for Calgary every season, but I can say that for them so far in this season. But the fact of the matter is that Montreal at this point in the year, they look unstoppable. I'm putting it right now. The Montreal Alouettes are the best team in the CFL right now. Everything is pointing towards that. Right now, Montreal looks like they want to bring that Grey Cup back to Montreal for a second straight year. And so that's the way it looks right now. Could that change? Yes. Is playoffs a different beast? Absolutely. But Montreal right now has absolutely everything going for it. Now, I will say Calgary has exceeded expectations. In terms of where it looked like at the start of the season, it looked like Edmonton had made so many moves. They're finally going to be able to break, kind of grab that brass ring. But then right as they went to grab the brass ring, Chris Jones started reeling the fishing line and the brass ring kept going up higher. So the Edmonton Elks haven't been able to get it done. But that's where the Calgary Stampeders have stepped in that role and being able to really... You know what? Actually being able to get some success going. And with Winnipeg struggling to start the year, this has been a really good opportunity for Saskatchewan to kind of get that kickstart. And so I think with Calgary this game, because if we look at the Calgary just last game, going against the Bombers, obviously Rene Paredes has been absolute money. I think actually kickers in the CFL as a whole have done a really good job this year. Not much complaining I can do in that regard. I will say though, if you are Calgary, if you're throwing the ball 43 times a game like you typically are, Montreal is going to make you pay for that. Because Montreal has shown that their defense is being able to do a very good job at getting those interceptions, at turning that ball around. Ruffin got an interception game before, last game it was. I believe it was Santos Knox who the game before that had been able to, wait, hold on a second. Yeah. I believe it was Santos Knox who had also been able to get an interception at one point in the season. I have to look back at some of these games to see exactly the names of the guys who had gotten some picks here for the Alouettes. Beverett, I see that he had gotten one.
What's that?
That was a game against Ottawa. And then, let me see here. Week 2, they had their game against Edmonton. This was where, Sankey and Cosby got sacks, as well as Leon and Ento had gotten interceptions, and then another sack for Johnson. And then I think week 1 was that Santos Knox interception. I could be wrong. Maybe it wasn't him. It might have been someone else. But let's see here. There was a fumble recovery for Sankey, as well as Beverett. And no, it wasn't. You know what it was? It was, or I don't know why I was saying. Why was I saying Santos Knox? It was Decoy. Decoy. Sorry, I don't know why. My mind was just going there. Everything mushes together. It wasn't him. I don't know why the hell I was thinking that. And then Sean Lemon and as well as Wigan had gotten a sack. My mind is going. You know what? I'm having a brain fart right now. Rick, please take over.
You know what? If I'm not mistaken, I think I could be wrong. I think this is the last Sean Lemon game. Until his hearing.
Oh, is that so?
I believe it's either this one or next week's game. It's one of the two. Because I know that they said that his appeal hearing was the beginning of July, and that it was going to be like 5 or 6 games that he was going to play before they had the hearing.
I will say his appeal, I'm not sure how that appeal is going to go. I will say, an important thing to remember is that we as the fans do not have access to the records of the supposed gambling that he's being accused of and stuff like that. We don't know as fans. We don't. We hear headlines, but we don't see any of the evidence ourselves. So this is where I think jumping to conclusions is not really something we can do. But we got to look at this on face value in the sense of we can't predict whether Sean Lemon's going to be there after this or whether he's not going to be there. We don't know. Unless you're involved in this appeal case, probably don't know. My guess too. But we have to look at this game that's coming up because that's all we can focus about. So, Sean, what was that, sorry?
My question is,
yeah,
with the magical musical chairs of receivers in Montreal, who's going to be the one to step up this game? We've had Philpott, we've had Speaker. Don't forget, they also have Julian Grant. Reggie White just came back.
I think this is going to be a Reggie White game. I'm not going to lie. Because he had that big kind of that comeback game where he had gotten some really good catches. I think this is the game where he takes off.
To be honest with you, this game is going to be like another Montreal Ottawa shellacking.
Yeah. One thing I will say is I think Calgary's going to do a pretty good job stopping the run game. I don't think Fletcher is going to be able to do much. I think Montreal is going to do their damage in the air. I think that's where that's going to happen, and that's where Calgary's going to get burned. Now, one thing you know what? I pointed this out in the Winnipeg game, but I'm going to have to point it out in this game more so. Montreal will need to be wary of that man. Number 6, Demario Houston. Demario Houston, he's going to be lurking. I'm calling for at least one Demario Houston interception for the simple fact that I think Montreal is going to need to rely on the throwing game to get this going. So I think Demario Houston gets one pick.
I have some sad news to tell you.
Oh?
Demario Houston did not practice today with an ankle injury.
Oh, boy. Oh, Calgary, you need your Houston, boy. Because if you don't have Houston, you have a problem. Yeah, that's right. I knew we were going there. I knew what the script was. I knew it. Oh, my. I knew that was going to be it. Overall, I think this is pretty much all we need to say about this game. There's nothing else I have to say. Jake Maier, he's been decent at the start of the year. I think he'll be decent here. I think the fact that Calgary's going to be trying to throw this ball a lot is going to kind of backfire on them a little bit. I think my prediction is that Jake Maier in this game throws 2 picks. 2 picks for him and 1 pick against Cody Fajardo. And I predict that Jake Maier will throw between 250 yards and 300 yards, and that Cody Fajardo will throw 300 plus.
I was going to say, I'm predicting Jake Maier to throw at least 50 passes, minimum.
Yeah. My prediction is Calgary doesn't run the ball.
Because, every game he's throwing at least 40, if not 45.
He's throwing typically 42, 43. It's a lot. But I think this burns them because Calgary, Montreal has done a really, really good job in their zone defense and their coverage. And I think that will bite them. So overall, my prediction's Montreal. Yours, Rick?
Obviously Montreal.
Which brings us to our last game of the week. The BC Lions versus the Hamilton Ticats in Hamilton. You will be at this game. I won't be far away. I will be at NXT Heatwave, a NXT pay-per-view happening at Scotiabank Arena. Again, video of that. Nolan Hockey Podcast. Check that out. And I told you at the start of the video, but maybe you didn't listen, which is why you should listen now. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Helps you make sure you don't miss any content. But if we were looking at this game here, me and Rick had a little bit of disagreements before the start of this recording, as I understand the pieces on Hamilton that are good. I also understand that, like the Bombers, they have the or I guess it's there technically in the recording because it's backwards. And And I know I say that as a Bomber fan. I know. But our situation is a little different in the sense of that we are facing Ottawa. You are facing BC. And I know I say that as a team. We've lost to Ottawa. But I'm putting it this way. If I needed my Bombers to beat a team and I'm given either Ottawa or BC, gun to my head, I'm picking Ottawa. BC has played well. Vernon Adams Jr. Oh boy, he has played really well. Alexander Hollins as well. Hollins and McInnes have really stepped into their roles as the number 1 and number 2 receivers. However, Rick, you wanted to tell me about this guy named Jamal Peters, who you are hoping is going to be able to shut that shit down.
I mean, they were able to shut down, Hardy didn't do that. He was able to shut down Rhymes. He was able to shut down Baines Jr.
The Baines Jr. one, I'd say, is the more impressive because Rhymes just had kind of fallen off a little bit. But Baines Jr., fair point.
And if you think about it, let me just look at this Winnipeg one. Okay, that's a bad example because that's where Hollins had the 250 15 against you guys. But even against Edmonton, let me pull it up here. Hollins, 55 yards. McInnes, 49 yards. They didn't even have 60-plus yards, either one of them. Don't forget, us Ticat fans are sending you Bomber fans back with a nice, lovely partying gift in the mail by the name of Paul Boudreau, who is axed today as our special teams, and you guys can have him as a lovely partying gift.
I'm sorry.
He is no longer our special teams coach.
You have reached the mailbox of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Unfortunately, they're not here to receive your call. You will try again at the next available hour.
But that the reason why I bring that up is because if you look at it, the first 3 games, Woods was only returning 10 to 15 yards.
Yep.
Woods gets injured last game. White is now able to do 26 to 30 yards. And I don't care what anyone says listening to this, but Paul Boudreau made that dumbass, pardon my French, but that dumbass decision to do that Schweb kick or whatever kind of kick you want to call that kick. And he deserves what he gets because that was the dumbest decision I've ever seen. And you got to lay in, what's the saying? You got to lay in your bed that you make. Well, he's laying in his bed.
You got to make your bed and lay in it.
Well, there you go.
That's what it is.
But the good thing is, the next 3 days I will be going to practice. I will be keeping an eye out for Mr. James Butler to see if he's coming back, because he was only kept out for concussion protocol. And everyone, we've called off the watchdogs because Himothy has been found.
Yes, I heard apparently that after the search and rescue effort has concluded, it is determined that he has emerged from hibernation and he is no longer stuck in the permafrost. That is what I've heard apparently about Tim White. Apparently he's back. Tim White is back. A big thing for Hamilton. Really, really important. And so with Tim White back and Bo Levi Mitchell has done pretty good this year. He really has. He's had he's had some whoopsies. I'm looking at you, also known as, I think it was either third or fourth quarter against Saskatchewan in Saskatchewan. It was a rough quarter for him. It was either the third or fourth quarter. He'd thrown 2 picks in 1 quarter. It was not great. Besides that, Bo Levi Mitchell has actually done pretty well. Just Tim White hasn't been catching the balls that have been thrown to him. But he finally started doing that last game. Because again, it was one of those things, we're talking about a top-tier receiver in the CFL who is going through a slump. But now it appears that he has emerged from that. And so this will be a big thing for the Ticats. And you know what? Regardless of who wins this game, I think this will be closer than people expect, as there's going to be a lot of people going into this game being like, Ticats are 0-4? Lions have looked decent? What's the question here? However, Rick has brought up some good points.
You know what the interesting thing that I just noticed?
What's the interesting thing you just noticed?
Tim White went from the 20th best receiver to the 11th best receiver. And all of those people that say Hamilton offense sucks, what team has 3 receivers in the top 11 for yardage? Because Montreal has 2, Ottawa has 1, Edmonton has 2, BC has 2, Winnipeg has 1, and Hamilton has, I take that back, 4 in the top 12. Just in yards.
Yep.
So all those people that think that Hamilton's offense is the problem, take another look at yourself, because it's not Hamilton's offense that's the problem. It's Mark Washington's that heated seat under Mark Washington's getting a bit hot. Because I think if this game doesn't do it, he'll be gone by next week. Because if I'm not mistaken, let me just double check. Next week is our bye week.
Yes, it is. Yeah, no, it is your bye week next week, and we may possibly be having something come for that. We don't know yet. We are looking for something, but we will see. Overall, I think it's time to make our picks, Rick. And so I think this is where we may differ a little bit, as my pick for this week is that the BC Lions will defeat the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Keep in mind, before I give my prediction, I want to double check to make sure that I get my facts straight before I say my comments.
Fair enough.
It was... Let me quickly find it as I'm quickly scrolling. Scroll. No, not that one. Not that one. Where was it? Yes! Week 12. After we lost to Edmonton last year, when Tommy Condell got fired last year, you know what our turnaround game was last year?
What was your turnaround game?
When we beat BC Lions 30-13.
Ooh.
And that was in Vancouver. This time, we are at home. We have a hometown crowd.
Manifest the win.
Could you imagine what it would look like if Hamilton won their first game of the season against BC? I know everyone's gonna say you're dreaming high, but listen, we're already at the bottom. We can't go any lower. The only way to go is to go high. Aim high.
Well, I'm sorry, Rick, but it's not Labor Day yet, so you can't have your win.
Last year's win against BC was before Labor Day.
Fair enough. It's funny. Actually, I think the video is now actually cutting out. It's still frozen on you, even though I can hear the audio from you. But I think we got all we've wanted to cover.
That is our prediction.
I think
my prediction.
Yeah, I got my prediction in. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you haven't, if you're not already. Leave your predictions for this week down in the comments section down below. I'd love to read them, see what you guys are thinking. Oh. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, and make sure you're.
One other thing that I will mention.
Yep.
You make fun of my predictions. Just a recap: Carter is 9-7. I'm 11-5.
Are you 11-5? Really?
I'm 11-5. There's
really
3 weeks that I've gone 3-1, and the second week I went 2-2. Every other week I've gone 3-1.
To be fair, I had a rough first week. I think a lot of people did though too, because the first week had went against a lot of expectations. But I had a good week last week, so hopefully this week I'm able to continue that. So, again, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Tune in to the next one when we have our reviews coming out. That one's going to be coming out a little bit later just because I fly home Monday. So, we'll probably be recording that Monday evening to go out Tuesday morning, ideally. So, we'll try to get on that when we can.
That's okay. So. Those people that are listening to this, head over to Ticat Talk Network for my preview and my review Sunday night, because I'll either be
there you go.
or I'll be jumping for joy, yelling at Carter
Yeah.
through Snapchat, showing him scoreboard and be like, I told you so.
Yep. And on Saturday, I'll have my Bomber video out regardless, so make sure you guys check that stuff out. So, yeah. Peace, love, and positivity to all you wonderful people. And we'll see you guys next time.